You're listening to the Plantbased, Not Perfect podcast, where we talk about striving for our healthiest selves while living in the real world. So, let's get into it. Welcome to episode number 26, and happy Thanksgiving. If you need any plant-based meal inspiration for Thanksgiving, make sure to check out my blog where I have a number of plant-based recipes for you to make this week. If you make any of them, be sure to tag me on Instagram at hothealthy, #plantbasednotperfect. So today we are going to be chatting about everything fasting, the different types of fasting, all of the many benefits of fasting, and which types of fasting I practice daily, and why fasting can help you with a number of issues from weight loss to preventing disease. So the benefits of fasting. Research suggests that fasting flips a metabolic quote-unquote switch, which essentially frees fat stores while prioritizing the safeguarding of lean muscle mass and function. Due to this, fasting activates the body's mechanisms that can improve overall body composition, repair damaged DNA, and promotes the production of ketones, with the possibility of slowing the processes of aging and disease. So, to put it in layman's terms, fasting clears away damaged cells and then repairs and or replaces the damaged cells with healthy new cells. Other benefits of fasting include it promotes longevity. It also helps you with feeling more energized, more alert. It gives you brain clarity, and it can lead to weight loss. Next, I wanted to get into the different types of fasting because nowadays when people just say fasting, they're basically talking about one type of fasting and everyone just assumes that there's only one and there's actually multiple types of fasting. And typically when people say that they are doing fasting in the morning, they're actually talking about a specific type, which is time-restricted fasting. So time-restricted fasting is essentially when you're eating within a window of your 24-hour day. So for example, if you're fasting from 9 p.m. at night, you stop eating after dinner, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up and you don't eat anything again until 9 a.m. So that would mean that you had not had any food or calories for 12 hours and that you were fasting. So fasting is a very normal thing that we all do while we're sleeping anyways, and that's why breakfast is called breakfast, because it means to break the fast. So essentially, if you did 9 to 9 and you got 12 hours of fasting, then you have 12 hours left in your day for your window of eating. And that is what time-restricted fasting is and what most people are talking about when they say that they practice fasting. Time-restricted fasting is sometimes confused with intermittent fasting, but intermittent fasting is actually can be fasting up to 24 hours. So it is a little bit different and longer than time-restricted fasting. So what most people are doing is time-restricted fasting. The next type of fasting I wanted to cover is alternate day fasting. So as the name implies, you would not eat any calories for a whole day, and then you would eat regularly the next day. So that next day, you wouldn't be fasting, you would just eat whenever you feel like it. And from alternate day fasting, they have shown the same fasting effects as the other types of fasting, but one of the stronger effects that they've seen from alternate day is positive weight loss effects and lowered cholesterol. And I will link to the study that goes into that in more detail for you guys. The next type of fasting is prolonged fasting. So prolonged fasting is 48 hours or longer of not eating anything. So obviously this one should be under the supervision of a doctor, but they have studied prolonged fasting with animals and have shown that the animals experience autophagy. So autophagy means that you start to clear away damaged cells, activates stem cells, and replenishes damaged cells with new healthy cells. So Dr. Walter Longo, who's the leading doctor in longevity, actually has some preliminary evidence of showing these same results in humans as well. And I will link to his site in the show notes so you guys can check him out for more information on this. And then the last type of fasting I wanted to cover is one that I feel there's some stigma around, or a lot of people have never heard of it, and that is water fasting. So like it sounds, you eat nothing and you fast and only consume water. And this can be for multiple days in a row. And essentially, a lot of people do water fasting, definitely under the supervision of someone, but for different diseases, because if you think about fasting and what we just covered and how it can clear away damaged cells and replace it with new healthy cells, if you are experiencing really severe autoimmune conditions or different cancers, then water fasting can be something that could really help you if you're trying to get rid of damaged cells. So it's something that's a little outside of mainstream, but I actually follow quite a few people who have used water fasting in their quest for health and have seen a lot of positive side effects from it. So it's definitely something, if you or a loved one are experiencing something very extreme, it's something to look into. So every type of fasting that I covered elicits a metabolic change that can improve health and promote longevity. So all of them can do the same thing, but they're a little bit different, and there's sometimes other factors that come into play when you're practicing different types. For time-restricted fasting in particular, they have shown that it has the potential to realign the body's circadian rhythm. So you get the anti-aging benefits, you delay age-related diseases, and you reduce DNA damage like I covered before. Like everything, I believe that the level of your fasting should coincide with where you are on your health journey. So like I said, for some people who are battling really severe diseases, something like a water fast can be really beneficial. But if you aren't experiencing any health issues, you just want to be your healthiest self, then I think time-restricted fasting is probably the right approach to try out. So which fasting do I practice? I actually started fasting a few years ago when I listened to Dr. Walter Longo, the leading longevity doctor. I was listening to him on a podcast. I was driving to my parents' house, and I loved what he shared, the research that he shared, and what he had to say about the ultimate things you could be doing for longevity. And one of the major ones was fasting. So that's how I first ever heard about it. And then I really fell in love with Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She's been on the Joe Rogan podcast multiple times, and she would refer to the work that Dr. Longo has done. And that really reinforced my belief in the healing benefits of fasting. So since then, so the last couple years, both Mac and I practice the time-restricted fasting. So we generally stop eating around 9 p.m. at night, and then we don't eat until 10 a.m. the next day. I don't follow this to a T. I'm not strict about it. You know, sometimes I might want some date bites at 10 p.m. at night. And then some mornings I might be really hungry and want to break my fast earlier. So I just eat when I feel hungry, but I don't make myself have breakfast really early in the morning anymore when I'm not actually hungry. And that was something I used to do because I believed that breakfast was the most important part of the day, and I would just make myself have something just to have it. And now I try to really listen to my body and only eat when I'm actually hungry. So a lot of times you'll see me make my lean green smoothie in the morning before I leave for work. I bring it to work with me, and then whenever I actually start feeling hungry is when I have it. So it could be 10 a.m., it could be 11 a.m. So I don't follow it too strictly because, again, I think you get a little caught up in being too strict. So that's not something that I do. But I do get a lot of questions about weight loss on Instagram, and because fasting has shown amazing weight loss benefits, it's definitely something I would try implementing if you're interested. If you haven't tried time restricted fasting yet, then it's something I would definitely start. Just try incorporating it maybe a few times a week until you get used to not eating breakfast so early in the morning. So how long is too long for fasting? So 12 hours seems to be the sweet spot if you're practicing time-restricted fasting. And this is per Dr. Longo. And he says, eat for about 12 hours a day, not much shorter and not much longer. If you fast much longer than 12 hours, that can lead to problems with gallstones and a shorter lifespan. If you fast longer, the people that eat for 15, 16 hours a day, that can lead to being overweight, obese, and then they develop insulin resistance. So he says that 12 hours is really the sweet spot. And I had heard from other doctors that you really don't want to exceed 16 hours of fasting. So if you stopped eating at 9 and then you don't eat until lunchtime, you don't want to go longer than that because it can actually have other side effects. So I like to go with Dr. Walter Longo. He's a longevity specialist, and he's done a lot of studies with humans who are taking part in the fasting diet. So I think 12 hours is pretty good if you're doing time-restricted fasting. The next question that comes up a lot related to fasting is, what about coffee? So does drinking coffee in the morning before you eat breakfast affect the health benefits that you're receiving from fasting? So some evidence suggests that having black caffeinated coffee or tea might have little effect on the beneficial effects associated with time-restricted eating. And then some experts suggest a more conservative approach that permits coffee and tea only during the designated window of eating. So the truth is they don't really know the answer to this yet. But for myself, I will have coffee, or as you've been seeing on my Instagram, I've been trying out matcha in the morning. I have that around 8 o'clock. So if that breaks my fast, then I guess I'll just take the 12 hours that I did get and go with it. So that verdict is still out. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. I checked out Dr. Rhonda Patrick's blog and videos on this, and there is not a specific answer to give. So again, I think it depends how strict you want to be, but it hasn't been shown to have a major effect on the health benefits. So I'm going to continue having coffee or matcha in the morning. So I hope this episode gave just an overview and summary of the different types of fasting, which one is the one that I practice and recommend, and just some of the major questions that come up, which is generally how long is too long to be fasting and what about coffee? And I just wanted to kind of provide the cliff notes because there's a lot of research and articles out there about fasting. And if you're very interested in learning more about fasting, I highly recommend Dr. Rhonda Patrick or Dr. Walter Longo, and I will link to their pages in the show notes for this episode. So today's question from Instagram is, how do I stop eating from anxiety? So my answer to this is I would try to replace the habit that you're forming with something healthy. So if you're feeling anxious and you're really wanting something crunchy like chips or pretzels or something, replace it with something similar that still has crunch to give you kind of that satisfaction that you're looking for. So maybe something like carrots and hummus or something that has a crunch to it, but that is a healthier food. Or say that it's more of a sweet tooth and you're really wanting something really bad because you're just anxious and it makes you feel better to go get ice cream or something like that. I would try to swap it for something healthier. So you could do the date bites, or you can make nice cream if you're really wanting ice cream, and then you don't have to feel guilty about what you're eating. And instead of trying to change your habit cold turkey, I would just work to make healthier choices when you do feel anxious, because I know that it's definitely a process to just stop feeling anxious. I don't think it's that simple. So my first step, if that were me, would be to look at what it is I'm craving about it. Is it getting the sweet satisfaction? Is it getting the crunchy satisfaction? And then trying to find foods that give you that same satisfaction, but a healthier option, so that you're eating foods that are feeding your health instead of fueling disease. So if you find yourself wanting to eat at night because you're anxious, I'd also recommend trying to journal your feelings and thoughts to get them out of your head and on paper, because I find that that can be really helpful when you're feeling anxious about something. Just putting it out on paper and putting your feelings in a journal can be a really helpful habit to start implementing. So I hope that helps you. As always, feel free to send me a direct message through Instagram. I love to hear from you guys, whatever your questions or comments or suggestions of what you want me to cover on a podcast, or if there's any guests that you are interested in hearing from, because I'm definitely going to start trying to have more guests on. Maybe I'll do like one a month. And so let me know if there's anyone in particular that you are interested in hearing from. And I hope you all have a very happy plant-based Thanksgiving. Bye.